I never imagined I would be sitting in that cold room, smelling of damp paper and old coffee, staring into the sharp gaze of Dr. Sarah Mitchell. It wasn't the worn leather chair that bothered me, nor the buzzing air conditioning that sounded like a tired propeller. It was the calculated silence she created, like someone stretching a rope and waiting to see when it would snap. "Marcus, do you know why you're here today?" Her way of asking irritated me. It wasn't curiosity, it was provocation. 25 years of service, 18 in special forces, dozens of missions in hostile territory, and there I was, sitting like a defendant describing a crime I wasn't sure I had committed. I wanted to be in the field, where the gravity of decisions is clear, and the price is paid immediately. Here, everything turns into paperwork, acronyms, and pointed fingers. "I was ordered to attend," I replied curtly. She tilted her head, jotting down notes like someone cataloging a rare animal. "That's what they told you." I asked, "Do you know why?" I took a deep breath. The clock ticked softly, almost sarcastically. Outside, Arlington continued as usual. Horns, footsteps, people who would never hear the word evac on a radio. I closed my eyes because when I close my eyes there is no city, just the white noise of the wind in the desert, and shards of memory. Maybe because General Harrison thinks therapy looks good in a Pentagon meeting, I murmured. A shortcut to the next position. Sarah didn't laugh. She rarely laughed. She crossed her legs and let the silence work. "So you don't believe in military psychotherapy?" "I believe in timely evacuation," I shot back. "That I've seen save lives. But have you seen orders kill?" The question hung in the air like a pinless grenade. Jake's face came back to me, whole, alive, sweaty, with that smile that seemed to say, "It's going to be okay," even when nothing was. It didn't go away. I saw the dust, heard the radio with interference, felt the metallic smell that precedes an explosion. I stood up. The chair creaked like old hull. I walked to the window and pressed my forehead against the cold glass. "What's worse than losing a man in combat?" I asked without turning. "Tell me." "It's losing a man and spending the following months hearing that it might have been your fault." This time she didn't write anything down. I continued before my courage abandoned me. Jake didn't die due to recklessness. He died because the evacuation was delayed by 40 minutes. 40. And 40 minutes in a collapsing perimeter is an eternity. Someone above us decided to wait for political confirmation before authorizing the rescue. Meanwhile, I counted breaths in the sand. "And the report?" she asked. "Called it an operational error. Nice, hygienic, neutral. An elegant way of saying a man bled to death because headlines weigh more than pulses." She looked at me over her glasses, her eyes steady. "And how do you feel when you repeat that?" "Anger," I replied. "And guilt, because I was the commander in the field. I promised to bring everyone home. I gave the order for him to hold position until the evac arrived. He held. The evac didn't." I returned to the chair. I ran my hand through my hair, trying to find a clean sentence, and only managing to pull more sand from my memory. "Do you talk to his family?" Sarah asked. "I do. Rebecca stays strong, but her eyes know someone made a mistake. Tyler doesn't ask directly, but I hear the question in every uncle, 'Are you going to be there?' The boy wants a man present." I turn into a spreadsheet. "And do you think you were wrong?" I paused. The word weighed heavily. "Every day," she pointed out, without harshness. "Sometimes the weight isn't from what you did, but from what you believe you should have done. There's a chasm between reality and expectation. You're living in that chasm." I breathed in. The air smelled of disinfectant. I thought about how many identical rooms I had crossed without really crossing anything. The phone vibrated in my pocket. A short message. "Tyler graduates on Saturday. He asked if you'll be there." Rebecca doesn't ask. She invites. I didn't respond. Promising has become a dangerous verb. "What would you do differently if you could go back?" Sarah asked. "I would have lied on the radio," I replied, surprising myself. "I would have declared degraded conditions, evac needed now, without waiting for protocol. I would have fought the battle earlier. Maybe I would have lost my position. Maybe I would have saved Jake. And why didn't you?" "Because I still believed the right people would do the right thing." I laughed without humor. The field taught me quickly the difference between map and terrain. And now? Now I don't know which war I'm in. There's one outside and another inside. I win one and lose another on the same day. She rested the pad on her lap and fell silent. Only the clock was speaking. When she spoke, it was slowly. Marcus, you're still on a mission. It's just that the mission has changed. You're trying to extract a man from within yourself. The evacuation has to come from within. I almost said that this sounded like motivational poster language, but I kept quiet. Because as much as it sounded too beautiful, something clicked. So how do I authorize this evacuation? I asked sincerely. It starts with showing up. For you, for yours. Show up on Saturday. The image hit me like a blow. Bleachers, a tone-deaf band, a loose uniform on a boy trying to fit in his father's place, and the empty spot next to him. Always empty. If I go and they ask, why did he die? What do I say? Tell the possible truth, she replied. He died because he held the line for us, because someone took too long. I put my phone away. The window glass didn't seem so cold anymore. What do I do if I freeze up there? I asked. Breathe. Count to 4. Remember the man you want to be when your daughter tells this story about you. She smiled slightly. And if nothing works, blame the therapist. She made me come. I genuinely laughed for the first time in a long time. The laughter came out crooked, but it came. I got up, grabbed the uniform cap, adjusted it as if it knew the way. In the hallway, the sound of the air conditioning had a different tone. I opened the street door, and the September heat embraced me without ceremony. I turned on my phone and wrote, "I'll be there, Rebecca. Tell Tyler I'll arrive early." I sent it before my courage slipped away. The screen reflected my tired face and something new that still had no name. Maybe it was just presence. Maybe it was the start of the right evacuation, the one that doesn't rely on any helicopter. That night, I dreamed of Jake. There were no explosions. There were bleachers, poorly made popcorn, creaking shoes, and him clapping out of rhythm as always. When I woke up, the guilt was still there, but it fit in a smaller backpack. I could carry it, and I was there. The Quantico base always had that unmistakable smell of metal and motor oil, mixed with burnt coffee from the vending machines. It was a place where nothing ever seemed to rest. Neither the lights, nor the hallways, nor the men. But for me, the base never felt so strange. I was coming back from a session with Dr. Mitchell, and it was as if all the gazes carried an unspoken question. Are you still the same? In the cafeteria, some fell silent when I passed by. It wasn't hostility. It was doubt. Part of them believed the official version of Isfahan, operational error. But rumors always travel faster than reports. And the rumors said I could have done more. I grabbed a tray, filled it with the basics: scrambled eggs, dry bread, and black coffee. I sat alone in the corner. It wasn't long before Johnson, the youngest on the team, showed up. He had that straightforward way of someone who hasn't learned to navigate silences yet. "Commander, can I?" he asked, already sitting down without waiting for a response. I nodded. "They're saying things," he continued, "about Jake, about the evacuation. Rumors will always exist, Johnson. The question is whether you will believe them." He looked at me with those eyes too young for the weight he carried. "I believe what I saw, and I saw you trying to save everyone." I sighed. It was comforting to hear that, but dangerous too. The Army doesn't like heroes outside the manual. Be careful what you say out loud, soldier. Too much confidence can isolate you. Johnson gave a crooked smile. "I've learned that, sir. But I can't pretend I didn't see what I saw." I let the silence end the conversation. Sometimes silence is the only possible trench. That afternoon I was called to a meeting in the intelligence sector. The room was small, stuffy, with maps projected on the wall and 3 officers leaning over them. Colonel Stevens, always with an impenetrable expression, was at the front. "Thompson, we need to talk about an emerging situation," he said straightforward. On the map, a red dot blinked over the border between Iraq and Iran. "Our target is Khaled al-Mansour, known for coordinating active cells in the region. There are indications that he is planning attacks against American facilities." I recognized the name. Many of us did. He was called the Merchant. Not only did he traffic weapons, but also information. He always appeared behind the scenes, never in the field. "What's the mission?" I asked. "Interception." Stevens pointed to the routes. He will meet with local leaders in a complex near Kermanshah. "And what does that have to do with me?" Another officer answered. "We need someone with experience in infiltration and extraction in sensitive areas." And despite the controversies, he gave me an ambiguous look. "No one reads the terrain like you do." It was a poisoned compliment. Experience, yes, but with fresh scars. "I want my full team," I demanded. "It's not an official brigade operation," Stevens explained. "It's a smaller detachment, almost unauthorized. You will have freedom, but also total responsibility." I laughed, without humor. "Freedom until you make a mistake. Then it becomes insubordination." Stevens didn't respond. We knew the unwritten rule. When you succeed, everyone wants to share the credit. When you fail, you sign alone. As I left the meeting, I ran into Connor, my explosives expert. He was leaning against the hallway, chewing gum like it was gunpowder. "I heard the news," he said bluntly. "Are they sending you to Iran again?" "I haven't accepted yet." "But you will. You don't know how to stop." I stared at him. Connor had that sarcastic demeanor, but I knew the irony hid something bigger: fear. He also carried scars from the night we lost Jake. "Maybe it's time for someone younger to take over." He let out a dry laugh. "Younger, maybe. Crazier, for sure. But more prepared? No way." That night at home, Lisa noticed my heavy mood. I was sitting on the couch, staring at the turned-off TV, when she came in with a cup of tea. "It's going to happen again, isn't it?" she asked straightforwardly. "What?" "This thing you do. You promise you'll be present, you promise you'll change, and the next week you get another order and disappear." I put my head in my hands. "It's not that simple, Lisa. It's always simple. Either you're here, or you're not." Emma, who had been listening from the stairs, chimed in. "Mom's right, Dad. You talk like you don't have a choice, but you always choose the same thing." My daughter's words hit deeper than any bullet. It wasn't just about missions. It was about accumulated absences, lost days that wouldn't come back. "I'm trying, Emma." "Then try harder." And she went back to her room, slamming the door. I sat in silence. Lisa set the cup on the table without saying anything more. Sometimes the harshest judgment doesn't come from command, but from home. 2 days later, I received confirmation. Mission approved. Departure in 72 hours. I was in charge of assembling the team. I chose Johnson, Connor, and 2 more trusted operators. Small, efficient, with no room for errors. In the briefing room, I showed the map of the region. "The target is Al-Mansour. He will be protected by local militias, but we have a short insertion window." Connor whistled. "Complex in Kermanshah. Do you have any idea what it means if it goes wrong?" "It means we don't come back." Johnson looked at me. "What do we do if there are civilians on site?" I took a deep breath. It was the question no one liked to hear, but everyone needed to. "Then we make decisions that we will carry for the rest of our lives." A heavy silence fell. We all knew what that meant. The night before departure, I went out to the balcony of my house. The wind carried the smell of rain. Lisa came over to me, without arguments, without accusations. She just held my hand. "Promise you'll come back?" she asked. "I promise." She squeezed my fingers. "Don't just promise to come back alive. Promise to come back whole." I looked at her, at Emma peeking from the window, at Ethan sleeping on the couch. For the first time in a long time, I realized that coming back wasn't just about crossing the border with breath in my chest. It was about coming back able to look them in the eyes without looking away. And for the first time, I feared I wouldn't be able to keep that promise. The Black Hawk helicopter sliced through the night like a dull blade, shaking with every gust of wind that came from the mountains of Kurdistan. The sound of the rotors echoed inside my chest, mixed with memories of other insertions, other nights when the silence before the fight felt endless. Johnson was next to me, checking the equipment for the 4th time. Too young to have learned to deceive fear, Connor was chewing his usual gum, looking down as if he could see through the darkness. "Insertion point in 5 minutes," the pilot warned over the radio. I responded with a nod. I didn't need speeches. On missions like this, words just get in the way. The terrain below appeared in the night vision lenses. Rocky hills, dirt roads, sleeping villages. A world that seemed to belong to no one, yet everyone was fighting over. "Everyone ready?" I asked. The chorus was dry. "Ready." We descended quickly, sliding down the ropes. The initial contact with the ground is always the same. The heart pounding too fast, the ear trying to filter sounds that might not even exist. We formed a perimeter, and the helicopter disappeared into the night, taking with it the only quick exit we had. Now we were just 5 men against the unknown. We moved silently along the narrow trails. The air was cold, heavy with the smell of wet earth. In the distance, the complex rose like a shadow larger than the others, surrounded by makeshift walls and watchtowers. "Eyes on the east entrance," I murmured into the radio. Johnson adjusted his aim. 2 guards, armed with AKs, light movement. Connor examined the wall. Poorly made concrete. A small charge would open a path, but it will draw attention. I shook my head. No explosives. We go through the shadows. We circled around to the north side, where part of the wall looked worn down. We climbed one by one until we fell inside the perimeter. The heart raced, but the feet moved with automatic precision. The first building was low, windows covered with boards. We forced the door and entered. The smell was of fuel and scrap metal. Dirty maps were tacked to the walls, marking smuggling routes. This was where we knew the merchant left traces. Johnson picked up a notebook. "Sir, this has notes on recent transactions. Cash in dollars. Destination Baghdad. Keep it. It might be useful later." Suddenly, we heard voices. 2 men were approaching from outside, speaking in Farsi. I signaled for silence. They passed slowly, flashlights sweeping the ground. The shorter one carried an ammunition box, the other a radio. Connor whispered, "If we grab that radio, we can listen to their frequency." I nodded. We moved in sync, quick and silent. A precise strike on the first, an arm lock on the second. In seconds, they were unconscious. We took the radio and dragged the bodies behind some crates. Adrenaline flowed like fire, but we knew every step forward was deeper into the wolf's den. Inside the complex, the sound of low engines caught my attention. I peeked through the window. 3 Toyota trucks were lined up, filled with wooden boxes. "What's in there?" I asked. Johnson brought up the thermal scope. "By the shape, sir, I think they are portable missiles. Stralis, maybe." Connor muttered a low curse. "This isn't just a meeting. It's a delivery." My stomach turned. If that were true, it meant we were in the midst of a weapons transaction that could arm dozens of terrorist cells. "Change of plans," I whispered. "We're not just after Al-Mansour. We need evidence, and if possible, to neutralize this shipment." We advanced deeper. The main building had 2 floors, with windows lit by dim lamps. There were voices, many discussing in rough tones. I recognized some terms in Farsi: shipment, payment, Tehran. I felt the blood run cold when I heard another name: Qasemi. I looked at Connor, who had also understood. His eyes widened. "It can't be. They said Qasemi was dead. Looks like intelligence was wrong again." If he was really there, it changed everything. It was no longer just an interception mission. It was the chance to hit the architect, the mastermind behind attacks that had cost us blood over the past years. But it also meant risk multiplied by 10. Suddenly, a shout in Farsi echoed in the courtyard. One of the guards had found the climbing marks on the wall. Lights began to turn on, hurried footsteps sounding through the complex. "We've been made," Connor said. The enemy radio crackled with swift orders. "Let's split up," I commanded. "Johnson and I will go upstairs. Connor, cover the rear with the other 2. If anything goes wrong, you retreat." "And you?" Johnson asked. "We finish what we started." We climbed the narrow staircase, each step creaking like a betrayal. Upon reaching the hallway, we clearly heard an improvised conference room filled with voices. I peeked through the crack in the door. There he was, Hassan Qasemi, alive, talking to Al-Mansour as if he owned the world. Maps spread across the table, boxes of ammunition stacked in the corners. My heart raced. It was like seeing a ghost materialized. Johnson looked at me, waiting for orders. I knew we had a choice: attack now and risk losing everything, or wait for the evacuation that might never come. And it was at that moment that the radio crackled. "Bravo 1, this is Connor. We have heavy movement in the courtyard. At least 20 armed men. They're sweeping everything. You need to get out of there now." I closed my eyes for a second. The same dilemma, the same weight. But this time, something in me said it wouldn't be the same. I signaled for Johnson to fall back. "Sir," he whispered, "we're not repeating Isfahan. Not yet." But before we could descend, the door burst open violently. 2 guards saw us and shouted. The hallway exploded in gunfire. We rolled back, firing in response. The noise echoed like thunder in the enclosed space. Blood pulsed in my ears. Johnson took down the first with a precise shot. The second fell after 2 of my shots. But it was too late. The whole floor knew we were there. On the other side of the room, I heard Qasemi's voice. Calm, cold, as if nothing could touch him. "Bring them in alive. I want to know who dares invade my home." At that moment, I realized we weren't just intruders. We were bait. The operation hadn't been poorly planned. It had been an invitation, and we had accepted. The entire hallway felt like a tunnel of metallic echoes. Every shot ricocheted off the walls. Every shout in Farsi multiplied into orders, as if the building were alive and wanted to swallow us. Johnson reloaded quickly, eyes wide but hands steady. "Sir, if we stay here, they'll surround us." "So we're not staying," I replied, pushing him toward the emergency stairs at the end of the hallway. But the stairs were already occupied. 3 guards were running up, firing wildly. We moved in sync. 2 shots from me, 1 from Johnson, and the bodies tumbled down the stairs. The problem was that each bullet spent was another reminder that we didn't have infinite supplies. "Bravo 1 to Bravo 3. I called Connor on the radio. "Status?" The sound of gunfire and explosions drowned out his response. "We're holding the courtyard, but not for long. They're bringing reinforcements from the back." "How many?" "Too many. If you don't move, we're going to get crushed out here." I took a deep breath. There was a time when clear orders resolved things, but that night there were no easy answers. Hold until the last second. We found Qasemi. Silence on the line for 2 seconds. Then Connor scoffed. "Of course we found him. That explains the warm welcome." I dragged Johnson with me to the end of the hallway. In front of us, a metal door with a sign in Arabic. Through the crack of light, I could see it. The conference room where Qasemi and Al-Mansur had been. "Are you ready?" I asked. Johnson swallowed hard but nodded. I pushed the door open and we entered firing. 2 armed men fell immediately. The rest ducked behind the table, firing in our direction. Maps and papers flew through the air like startled crows. And then I saw him, Hassan Qasemi, standing calm, holding a handheld radio. He wasn't shooting. He was just watching, like someone watching a game whose outcome he already knew. "A tree. You Americans never learn," he said in English with a heavy accent. "You come to my house thinking you can take whatever you want. But tonight, you're not the hunters. You're the prey." I pulled Johnson to cover behind a pillar. "Don't listen. He just wants to destabilize us." "I've already destabilized you," Qasemi continued. "I knew you were coming. I knew the soldier, tired of carrying guilt, wouldn't resist the chance to redeem his conscience." I felt my blood run cold. He was talking to me. "You think we don't know about Isfahan?" he said, raising his arms. "You let your friend die, and now you're here trying to kill the shadow you carry." "But the shadow doesn't die." Johnson looked at me, confused. "Sir, how does he know that?" I didn't answer. The knot in my throat tightened. Qasemi smiled, satisfied with the silence. "See? I know your weaknesses better than you do." I gave a quick signal to Johnson. He understood. He threw a smoke grenade into the center of the room. The next moment, we charged in firing. Confusion, screams, shattered glass. When the smoke cleared, Al-Mansur was lying on the ground, bleeding. But Qasemi had vanished. "He escaped out the back," I shouted. We ran through the side door. The hallway led to a narrow staircase descending toward the courtyard. The sound of combat outside was deafening. Rifle bursts, grenade explosions, Connor's dry barking on the radio. We reached a balcony overlooking the courtyard. I saw Connor and the others retreating behind a destroyed truck. Enemy guards were approaching in waves, illuminated by flashlights and gunfire. And in the midst of the chaos, there he was. Qasemi was running toward an armored truck, protected by 4 armed men. "Target in sight!" I yelled. I fired, but the distance and movement made the shot impossible. Johnson tried to keep up, but an enemy shot nearly hit him in the head. We had to fall back. The radio crackled again. "Bravo 1, this is Connor. We can't hold out for another 5 minutes. We need extraction." I leaned my hands on the railing, assessing quickly. If we focused on Qasemi, we risked losing Connor and the others. If we fell back, we'd lose the best chance to eliminate the architect. It was Isfahan all over again. Only now I knew. Any choice would come at a cost. "Bravo 3, hold your position," I replied. "We're coming to you." Johnson stared at me. "But sir, Qasemi, hurry. If he escapes, we'll go after him again. But if we lose our men here, there won't be a next time." We ran down the side stairs, shooting at the guards trying to intercept us. We dashed across the courtyard, bullets slicing through the air. We dove behind the truck where Connor was, sweaty, covered in blood. We didn't even know whose it was. "You took too long," Connor shouted. "And you talk too much," I retorted, reloading my weapon. He laughed, even under heavy fire. "Sight, that's the Marcus I know." Together we repelled the next wave of enemies. The ground was covered in debris, the smell of gunpowder and sweat. And at the far end of the courtyard, Qasemi's truck took off rapidly. Johnson cursed. "He's getting away!" I looked up at the sky. The rotors of the Black Hawk were approaching. Our pilot had defied orders, coming early. "Extraction in 30 seconds!" The pilot's voice echoed on the radio. Connor smiled. "Looks like we got a chance to live." "Yowl!" "Or to die trying," I replied. The helicopter hovered low, ropes dropping into the middle of the courtyard. We ran. Bullets whizzed around us, guards shouted. Johnson went up first, then Connor and the others. When it was my turn, I hesitated for a moment. Outside, on the dirt road, I saw Qasemi's truck disappearing into the dust. My heart told me to let go of the rope and run after him. But my mind reminded me, how many more would die with me? I held on tight to the rope and climbed. Inside the helicopter, the deafening noise of the rotors mixed with the heavy sighs of the team. Blood, sweat, and silence filled the space. Connor was cleaning a cut on his arm. Johnson stared into space, still panting. I, on the other hand, looked down at the ground disappearing beneath us. We had survived, but we had not won. Upon landing at the forward base, we were greeted by Stevens. He had that expression that mixed disappointment with political calculation. "So?" he asked. "We found Qasemi," I replied. "And?" "He got away." The colonel took a deep breath. "You knew the risk. This will complicate everything." Connor stepped forward. "With all due respect, Colonel, if we hadn't gone when we did, no one would be here to complicate anything." Stevens stared at him but didn't respond. He turned to me. "Prepare your report. It will be reviewed at the Pentagon." As I walked toward the barracks, I felt the weight of failure on my shoulders. Qasemi's face haunted me. The cold smile, the cutting words. He knew about me. He knew too much. And the question pounding in my mind wasn't how he knew, but why. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring into the darkness. The memory of Jake returned as always. But this time, it wasn't the blood or the late evacuation. It was his voice, firm, almost laughing. "Marcus, sometimes the only victory is bringing your people home." I looked at Johnson sleeping in the bunk beside me, at Connor mumbling in his deep sleep. Maybe Jake was right. Maybe that night was a victory, even with Qasemi still out there. But my heart didn't believe it. In the morning, the sky was gray over the forward base, as if even the clouds knew that the previous night had ended in death. The coffee was cold, the looks heavy. No one said anything, but the silence spoke louder than any report. Connor chewed slowly on a piece of hard bread, his jaw tense. Johnson was staring at the crumpled map that still had the routes drawn. as if he could find an alternate path that never existed. I felt the weight of each of them on my shoulders. The failure wasn't just mine, but I was its face. At exactly 10 o'clock, we were called to the communications room. Colonel Stevens was there, accompanied by 2 officers we had never seen before. The kind of men who don't wear uniforms for war but decide who bleeds in it. "Sit down." Stevens' voice left no room for discussion. We complied. "The Kermanshah operation has been officially recorded as inconclusive." He spoke with clinical calm. "You returned alive, but not with what was necessary." Connor scoffed. "Not with who was necessary, I mean." Stevens ignored him. "The Pentagon is divided. Some say it was an unavoidable operational error. Some say it was field negligence." I looked at him firmly. "Are you telling me they want a head? I mean, they want yours." Stevens returned the gaze. Silence. Even the clock seemed to stop. Johnson shifted in his seat, frustrated. "Sir, that's not fair. The commander saved the whole team." "Fairness is not the currency here, soldier," said one of the men in suits. "Politics is." My blood boiled, but I remained silent. "Marcus, you have 2 options," Stevens continued. "You can accept being sidelined and leave your career here, with a heavy file and closed doors. Or? I asked, already knowing the answer. "Or you can lead a new operation." Stevens projected images on the screen. Satellites, routes, movement records. "Intelligence confirms that Qasemi is back in circulation. And more, he is preparing something big." Connor clenched his fists. "Of course, always something big. It's not rhetoric." Stevens enlarged the image. Trucks in line, boxes being loaded. "We're talking about a shipment of chemical weapons, the kind of thing that leaves no room for error." I looked at the screen. Chemical weapons. If that were true, we were facing something much larger than smuggling. "And where is he?" I asked. "In the Zagros Mountains, underground complex, protected, isolated. But we managed to infiltrate an asset. And what's the objective? Capture? Neutralization?" Stevens took a deep breath. "This time, anything. What matters is that he doesn't come out alive." I felt the weight of the words. It wasn't about justice, nor about saving lives. It was about politics, reputation, headlines. "And if I refuse, then the narrative will be simple," said the man in the suit. "Commander Incompetent failed in 2 critical operations and was removed. You know what that means." I took a deep breath. "When do we leave?" Stevens answered without hesitation. 48 hours. In the barracks, the atmosphere was heavy. Connor kicked a chair against the wall. "This is a joke, Marcus. They want you to go there just to wash their own honor." "It's not the first time they've used soldiers as currency," I replied. "But it's the first time you let them." He glared at me, eyes aflame. "You're going to lead us straight back into the mouth of hell just because they want to save their careers?" Johnson intervened. "Connor, he has no choice." "There's always a choice," Connor shouted. "That's what cost us, Jake, remember? Because we followed too many rules, too many protocols." His name hung in the room like a knife. "Don't say his name like that," I retorted, my voice lower but sharper than any shout. Connor took a deep breath but didn't back down. "Jake died because we trusted too much in those who would never care about us. And now you're going to make the same mistake." I looked at both of them. Connor burned with anger. Johnson, silent, seemed torn between loyalty and fear. "If we're going down, I'm going down in front. But this mission is our chance to decide how this story ends. Not the politicians. Ours." Connor looked away but didn't respond. That night I went home to Arlington. Lisa was in the living room reading quietly. Emma was studying in her room. "Another mission?" she asked, without looking up from her book. "Another mission? How long?" "I don't know. Maybe long enough for you to think I won't come back." She closed the book slowly. "I no longer expect the right answers from you, Marcus. I just hope that one day you realize how much you're leaving behind." "I realize it every day." My voice faltered. Emma appeared at the door of her room, arms crossed. "If you don't show up at Tyler's graduation, don't bother showing up here either." The words cut deep, worse than bullets. "Emma," I started, but she had already gone back to her room, slamming the door. Lisa said nothing. She just picked up the book and went upstairs, leaving me alone in the living room. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall. Rebecca had texted earlier, "Tyler is nervous. He's asking if you'll be there." I didn't reply. How could I promise when my future was tied to the orders of men who had never pulled a trigger in the field? I picked up a photo on the table. Me, Jake, and Connor, smiling after a mission in Afghanistan years ago. We were covered in dust, but we were alive. I remembered Jake's words. "One day, Marcus, you'll have to choose between following orders and protecting your family. I hope you know the difference." I looked at the photo, at my phone, at the closed door of Emma's room, and I realized maybe the next mission wasn't just in Iran. Maybe it was inside my own home. The next day, the team trained in silence. Checklists, equipment checks, entry simulations, everything automatic. No jokes, no smiles. At the end of the day, Johnson approached. "Commander, can I speak?" "Go ahead. I know you carry the weight of Jake, but if you go into this mission just to make up for it, you'll take us all down with you." I looked at him. Too young, but with a clarity that few veterans had. "And what do you suggest, soldier?" "That you go in to win, not to atone for guilt." The words echoed long after he left. That night I received an updated dossier on the complex in Zagros. Satellite photos, infiltration routes, drone reports. But what caught my attention was a blurry image. A woman being taken into the complex. Short caption, "Infiltrated asset. Status unknown." It was a field agent, American, who had disappeared months earlier in Baghdad. Now we knew where she was. The dilemma became even crueler. Qasemi, chemical weapons, and a hostage. 3 variables. An impossible choice. I closed the dossier. I took a deep breath. And I realized the mission wasn't just theirs. It was mine too. The silence of the Zagros Mountains was not natural. It was heavy, dense, as if even the animals had learned to be silent in the face of the weapons crossing those routes. The wind blew cold, bringing with it the scent of dust and old gunpowder, memories of forgotten battles. We marched in a line, each step calculated, each breath measured. Johnson led the way, eyes sweeping the terrain like a human radar. Connor was behind me, always alert, chewing the damn gum he never let go of. The other 2 operators brought up the rear. The night was our ally, but also our greatest risk. The darkness hid, but also blinded. Any mistake could be the last. "Infiltration point 300 meters, I whispered into the radio. Johnson signaled with his hand, crouching behind a rock. We peered together. The complex loomed ahead, wedged between 2 slopes, with reinforced concrete walls and watchtowers at each end. Searchlights swept the ground at regular intervals. "Heavy security," Connor murmured. "This isn't just a storage facility." He was right. The layout of the defenses wasn't that of a warehouse. It was that of a fortress. If Qasemi is there, he didn't come just to guard weapons. I passed the binoculars to Johnson. "What do you see?" He adjusted the lenses. Armored vehicles in the yard. At least 3 covered trucks. Likely underground structure. It was exactly what I feared. Chemical weapons. We set up an observation position. We spent hours monitoring, recording routes, guards, patrol times. But something was bothering me. "Are you noticing?" I asked Connor. "What?" "They don't seem worried about an air attack. No visible anti-air systems. Maybe hidden. Maybe. Or maybe they're not expecting drones. Maybe they're expecting us." Connor stared at me, chewing slowly. "You think this is a trap? I think Qasemi never does anything without calculating 3 steps ahead." Johnson, overhearing the conversation, swallowed hard. "So what do? We move forward, but with our eyes open. At midnight, we moved to the east entrance. The wall was too high to climb without being seen, but we found a drainage pipe that led inside. Tight, damp, smelling of rust, but it was the only option. One by one, we crawled through the pipe. The sound of metal against elbows and knees echoed like a war drum. The claustrophobic feeling was suffocating. Every meter felt like a kilometer. When we finally emerged inside the perimeter, we were covered in mud and rust. But we were inside. The yard was spacious, illuminated by a few poles. Stacked wooden crates, metal barrels with Arabic symbols. Connor brought the discreet flashlight closer to one of them. The inscription was clear. VX agent. He looked at me, pale. Jesus, Marcus. This isn't a bluff. So now we know what's at stake. I took a deep breath. And now we also know we can't fail. We advanced toward the main building. Inside, the corridors were narrow, lit by dim lights. The sound of voices echoed in Farsi. Soldiers talking, some laughing. They seemed too relaxed for guarding a chemical arsenal. That made me even more suspicious. "Connor, do you feel that?" I whispered. "I do." He ran his hand along the concrete wall. New construction. Very new. What he didn't need to say was obvious. A custom-made hideout. And new hideouts are rarely just storage facilities. We arrived at a large room filled with tables and computers. Johnson rushed to one of the terminals, connecting a device to copy data. "Sir, this is gold. Routes, contacts, transactions. It'll take a few minutes to transfer. Quick then. We don't have minutes to spare." While he worked, Connor watched the security cameras. Strange. He frowned. Some are off, others pointed at useless places. As if they wanted us to pass unnoticed, I finished. My stomach turned. And then, as if fate wanted to confirm my worst fears, the radio crackled. A calm, cold, cutting voice. "Good evening, Commander Thompson." My blood ran cold. It was Qasemi. "I see you accepted my invitation." I looked at the others. Johnson froze in front of the computer. Connor stood still, his jaw clenched. "How is he on our frequency?" Johnson whispered. Qasemi continued, ignoring the question. "You enter my home thinking you hunt me. But I know every step you take. I know your fears. I even know your daughter's names." The radio felt heavy in my hand. "This is a bluff," Connor tried, but his voice didn't convince. "Emma," Qasemi said slowly. "Sweet name, isn't it?" My heart stopped. "Get out of the complex if you want to see her grow up. Or stay and die like dogs." The silence in the room was deafening. "Sir?" Johnson started, but his voice faltered. Connor stepped forward. "This is psychological. He doesn't know anything." But I knew. Qasemi didn't bluff. He only spoke when he was sure. "Johnson, finish the copy and prepare everything for evacuation. Connor, prepare alternative routes." "But what about Qasemi?" Connor protested. "Are you going to let him escape again?" I closed my eyes for a second. I saw Jake's face, bleeding in my arms. I saw Emma telling me that if I didn't show up, I wouldn't come back. It's not about him. Not today. It's about us. We left the room in silence, each step heavier than the last. The corridors were too empty, too quiet. It was like walking in a cemetery already prepared for our burial. When we reached the yard, the sound of engines broke the silence. Trucks moving, headlights illuminating the night. Guards emerging from the shadows, but they weren't shooting. They were just surrounding us, like shepherds guiding cattle. And in the center, atop a pickup truck, Qasemi appeared. Calm, even elegant, with the same cold smile. "I told you they would come." And they did. "Oh." His voice echoed through the makeshift speakers. "Now, I will give you a choice." He raised his hand. Two guards dragged a hooded female figure to the center of the courtyard. Bound, weakened, but alive. "Jessica Parker," Qasemi said. "Do you want her back? Easy. Leave your equipment, surrender, and maybe I will be generous." Johnson gritted his teeth. "Sir, we can't give everything up." "He knows too much," Connor growled. "This is a game to humiliate." I took a deep breath. I looked at the hostage, at my team, at the chemical arsenal behind us. This was it. The dilemma. Save one life, save millions, or save my team. Qasemi smiled. He knew he was in control. "Choose, Commander. Either die like a coward or live like a traitor." Time seemed to stand still, and I knew any decision that night would haunt me forever. Time seemed to stand still. The night in the complex courtyard was thick with dust and bright lights, as if every particle in the air was waiting for my decision. Qasemi stood on the pickup truck, the makeshift microphone in hand, his cold smile cutting through the darkness. Jessica, the hostage, knelt on the ground, struggling to breathe under the hood. "Surrender, Thompson." Her voice echoed, firm, calculated. "Hand over your weapons. your recordings, your men, and you and I can negotiate." Johnson shifted, the rifle steady in his hands. "Sir, we cannot give in. If we give everything up, he will kill us." Connor growled. "He already wants to kill us. This is a spectacle." I took a deep breath. My mind raced. I had 3 variables: my team, Jessica, and the chemical arsenal. And only one truth: I couldn't save all 3. Qasemi opened his arms like a preacher before his congregation. "You think you fight for America, but you only fight so that men in suits can keep their seats in Washington. I do not. I fight for something greater." I looked at Johnson. Sweat dripped down his face, but his eyes did not waver. Connor was tense, ready to explode at any moment. I knew that if I didn't make a decision in that instant, the choice would be made by enemy bullets. "Bravo 3! Cover me!" I shouted. Connor launched 2 smoke grenades in quick succession. The courtyard filled with white mist, muffling screams in Farsi. Johnson and I ran toward Jessica. The guards tried to react, but the confusion disoriented them. I reached the hostage. I yanked off the hood. Her green eyes were wide, her face bruised. "We're with you! Hang in there!" I whispered. Johnson cut the ropes binding her wrists. "Move, ma'am, quickly!" But Qasemi was already anticipating. His men opened fire blindly. Bullets whizzed, shattering crates and barrels. Connor was shouting orders from the other side. "Move! Move!" I lifted Jessica in my arms and we ran toward cover. Connor threw another grenade, but a precise shot hit the ground nearby, throwing us all against the wall. I felt my ear ringing, my whole body vibrating. Jessica cried out in pain, but she was alive. Johnson pulled her behind a stack of barrels, and then Qasemi's voice cut through the chaos, cold as if nothing could touch him. "Thompson, it's no use. You chose the wrong path. Now you will watch everyone die because of your stubbornness." I looked to the center of the courtyard. He had stepped down from the truck, walking calmly through smoke and gunfire, as if he were untouchable. In his hand, he held a detonator. Connor shouted, pointing, "That son of a bitch is going to blow everything up." My heart raced. If Qasemi activated that device, the barrels of VX agent would turn the complex into a chemical hell. There would be no evacuation. There would be no survival. "Johnson, get Jessica to the pipe exit. Now!" "And you?" "Now!" I shouted. He obeyed me, dragging the hostage toward the infiltration route. Connor stayed. "I'm not leaving you alone. Then we die together," I replied, setting my sights on Qasemi. The world seemed to shrink. It was just me, him, and that damned button. I fired first, a precise shot to the chest of the guard to his right. Connor took down another, but Qasemi did not flinch. He simply raised the detonator, with a smile of someone who had already won. "You don't understand, Thompson. I have always had control. In Isfahan, in Kermanshah, here. I decide who lives and who dies." My vision blurred with rage. I remembered Jake, bleeding in my arms. I remembered Emma, accusing me of always choosing war. I remembered Tyler asking if Dad would be proud. And I realized it wasn't just about Qasemi. It was about me. I ran straight ahead, ignoring the bullets whizzing around me. Connor covered my advance, but each step felt like a miracle. I got close enough to see the scar on Qasemi's face, a result of past confrontations. He pressed the button. Nothing happened. Connor laughed, even while panting. "The detonator is blocked." For a second, I saw the look of surprise on his face. Just 1 second. That was all I needed. I shot. The bullet went through the arm that held the device, flinging it away. Qasemi fell to his knees, blood dripping, but still wearing that damn smile. "Kill me, Thompson, and prove to your men that you're just a killer like me." I held the gun steady, heavy breaths escaping me. It could end there. One shot and all that torment would come to an end. But then I heard Johnson's voice over the radio. "Hostage secured. Evacuation route cleared." Emma's face flashed in my mind. "You always choose the same thing, Dad." I lowered the gun. "No, you don't deserve an easy death. You will live. You will answer for your crimes." Connor looked at me, incredulous. "Are you crazy? He'll escape again." No, he won't. I looked at Qasemi, bleeding on the ground. Because this time it's not the army holding him. It's the truth. I tied his hands with the ropes that had previously held Jessica. He laughed, spitting blood. You still don't understand. I don't lose. I never lose. I looked into his eyes. Then learn. Today, you lost. We managed to get out through the tunnel under heavy fire. Every meter felt infinite. Johnson led the way with Jessica. Connor covered the rear. I dragged Qasemi, handcuffed, heavy but determined. When we emerged on the other side, the fresh night air felt like a blessing. The helicopter was already waiting for us, rotors cutting through the sky. We boarded quickly, carrying the hostage and the prisoner. Inside the aircraft, Jessica was crying with relief. Johnson was calming her down. Connor was breathing heavily, still furious. I looked at Qasemi, handcuffed, bleeding, but smiling. Always smiling. And I realized the battle was far from over. Back at the base, Stevens was waiting for us. When he saw Qasemi alive, his eyes widened. My God, you really brought him. He will answer for everything, I replied, handing over the prisoner. Stevens nodded, but there was something in his gaze that I didn't like. Too much politics, not enough justice. Connor approached me. You should have finished him off back there. Maybe, but it wouldn't have ended with me. Connor stared at me for a second and then gave a tired half smile. Jake would have understood. I nodded. And that's why I'm still here. That night I sat alone in the barracks. I took off my vest, washed my face, looked in the mirror. I didn't see just scars. I saw choices. Emma was right. I had always chosen war. But for the first time, maybe I had chosen something different. The interrogation of Qasemi began less than 24 hours after the capture. The room was cold, lit by fluorescent lights buzzing like mosquitoes. He was sitting in a metal chair, handcuffed, but he seemed comfortable, as if the environment belonged to him. On the other side of the mirrored glass, I watched with Stevens and two other intelligence officers. He doesn't show fear, Johnson commented, standing next to me. Because he doesn't have any, I replied. For people like him, even failure is a victory. Stevens cleared his throat. We've arranged for a specialized interrogation team. But what really matters is what Washington is going to do about this. I looked at him. You mean what they're going to do with him? Stevens looked away, which said more than any answer. That night, we were called to a video meeting with the Pentagon. The screen displayed 4 generals and 2 suited civilians. The contrast between tired faces and impeccable suits made it clear who carried weapons and who carried pens. First, congratulations to the team, said one of the generals. Bringing Qasemi in alive was an achievement that few thought possible. But this achievement creates dilemmas, interrupted one of the civilians. We have allies who would rather see him dead. The mere fact that he's breathing is already a political risk. Connor, who was watching with his arms crossed, scoffed loudly. So we should have listened to you back there? Kill him and be done with it? The civilian ignored him. We need to decide. Public trial, diplomatic negotiation, or silent disappearance. The word disappearance burned in my ears. With all due respect, gentlemen, my team risked their lives to bring him in alive, not to have him vanish as if he were nothing. One of the generals nodded. Thompson is right. The integrity of the mission is at stake. But the civilian insisted, integrity doesn't win wars. Strategy does. They cut off the transmission without a conclusion. The silence in the room was heavy. Connor broke first. I knew they wouldn't keep it simple. I looked at him. It's never simple. Days later, I received authorization to speak directly with Qasemi. When I entered the room, he smiled, his lips cracked, his eyes still filled with that irritating calm. So you came to look into my eyes, Thompson? Looking for answers? I sat down across from him. I came because I want to understand how you knew so much. How you knew about my daughter, about Jake, about Isfahan. He tilted his head. You think we only spy on governments, but we spy on souls. Your reports, your conversations, your soldiers. Everything leaves marks. So there were informants inside our own house, closer than you think. He smiled again. Who do you think delivered your mission in Kermanshah? My stomach froze. A traitor. I don't believe you. You don't have to. He leaned back in the chair. The truth will find you, as always. I left the room with heavy breathing. Stevens was waiting for me in the hallway. What did he say? That we have a traitor. Stevens sighed. Then it's worse than I thought. Back at the barracks, I found Johnson cleaning his rifle. He looked at me and realized immediately that something was wrong. Oh, sir, something happened. Qasemi talked too much. I sat on the bed, tired. He said we were betrayed in Kermanshah. Johnson dropped the cloth. That would explain a lot. The camera's off, the suspicious movements. Connor entered the room at that moment carrying a bottle of water. And now? Are we going to hunt ghosts within our own team? If necessary, yes, I replied firmly. If Qasemi is right, we can't ignore it. Connor shook his head. Yesoy, this will destroy us before any terrorist does. But I knew. It was already destroying us. In the midst of this chaos, my personal life was crumbling in silence. Lisa barely answered my calls. Emma didn't respond to my messages. I had promised to go to Tyler's graduation, but each hour of delay seemed to push that promise further away. Finally, on a weekend off, I went to Arlington. I knocked on Rebecca's apartment door. She opened it, surprised. Marcus, I thought you wouldn't come. I promised. Inside, Tyler was in his impeccable uniform, nervous for the ceremony. Mason was running around the room with a soccer ball. Rebecca smiled, trying to hide the longing in her eyes. He looks more and more like Jake, she said, looking at Tyler. I know. My voice faltered. During the ceremony, when Tyler received the award, his eyes searched for me in the audience. I stood up and clapped, louder than anyone. For the first time in months, I saw pride instead of pain. But I also felt guilt, because deep down, I knew I couldn't always be there. The next morning, back at the base, Stevens called me. Thompson, we have a problem. Another one? The convoy that was taking Qasemi for advanced interrogation was attacked. My blood froze. Is he dead? No. Stevens took a deep breath. He was taken. The words hit like punches. What do you mean, taken? Ambush. Precise shots. Pre-planned route. Stevens stared at me. Someone inside passed the information. The ground seemed to disappear beneath my feet. Everything we had done, all the risk, all the blood, in vain. Marcus, Stevens said quietly, it's no longer about the mission. It's personal. If we want Qasemi back, there's only one team capable of bringing him back. Yours. I looked at him, at Johnson, at Connor, and I realized the hunt wasn't over. It was just beginning. That night, alone, I looked at Jake's photo once more. The anger burned, but so did the determination. Qasemi wasn't just an enemy. He was a distorted mirror of everything I could become if I let the war consume me. And now, more than ever, I knew. This battle wouldn't be won in distant fields, but within me. The attack on the convoy had been quick and calculated. A small but trained group intercepted the vehicles on an isolated road and took Qasemi without leaving a trace. It was too obvious to be mere luck. Someone inside our own system had sold the coordinates. When Stevens gave me the news, I didn't shout. I didn't break anything. I just stood in silence. Because silence is what remains when anger becomes cold enough to turn into decision. I want my team ready in 12 hours. That was all I said. Johnson found me in the barracks, restless. Sir, if it is indeed internal betrayal, we have no way of knowing who is on our side. Then we won't ask for permission. I stared at him. Lay? We'll act before they realize. Connor laughed without humor. Finally, the Marcus I know. Disobeying orders since forever. It's not disobedience, I corrected. It's survival. Our first step was to follow the digital trails. Johnson, skilled in more than just weapons, dove into the intercepted communication files. He spent hours in front of the computer, the bluish light reflecting off his tired face. Here. He pointed to a series of short transmissions in Farsi, coded. They were sent less than an hour before the ambush. Origin? I asked. Washington. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just an infiltrator. It was someone in the heart of command. So they never wanted him to arrive alive, I murmured. They wanted him out of the picture, but without our hands dirty. Connor spat on the floor. Politicians? No. I clenched my fist. Traitors. 2 days later, we located Qasemi's new hideout, an abandoned facility in the mountainous borders of Kurdistan. Local informants confirmed the movement of armored vehicles and foreign guards. He was there, surrounded, but alive. The mission was simple on paper: breach, rescue the prisoner, and bring him back. In practice, we knew it would be suicide. Before leaving, I went to Arlington. I needed to see my family. Lisa looked at me with no surprise when I appeared at the door. Another mission. Maybe the last one. My voice was low. Emma came down the stairs, staring at me. "Are you coming back?" I knelt before her. "I can't promise that, but I can promise that everything I do is so you can live in a world where monsters like him have no power." She took a deep breath, and for the first time, she didn't look away. "Then come back, but come back whole, not just alive." I felt her words like a blade to the heart. I hugged Lisa, kissed Emma, and left. The night in Kurdistan was cold. The wind cut like a knife. Our team moved in absolute silence, shadows among shadows. As we approached the facility, the tension was almost palpable. Guards on patrol, searchlights sweeping. Everything felt like a staged theater. "This stinks of a trap," Connor whispered. "Every war stinks of a trap." I adjusted my weapon. But still, we go in. We breached through the least protected side. We silently took out 2 guards, cutting a path to the central building. Inside, long damp corridors. The smell of mold mixed with gunpowder. We found Qasemi in a large room, surrounded by 4 armed men. He was sitting, handcuffed, but smiling. Always smiling. "I told you I don't lose, Thompson," he said, in a drawn-out English. "Even in prison, even betrayed, I remain in control." Connor raised his weapon, but I held him back. "Alive. We need him alive." Qasemi laughed. "That's not what your superiors want. You know, they want me dead, but not by your hands. By theirs." Anger consumed me. With every word, he reminded me of Jake, of Emma, of all the faces I carried in my memory. "You talk too much," I signaled. In seconds, we took down the guards and cuffed him again. But the moment we turned to leave, hell broke loose. Explosions shook the building. Red lights flashed. Sirens wailed. Connor shouted, "Ambush!" Johnson was firing at shadows appearing in the corridors. Machine guns spat fire from all directions. I dragged Qasemi by the shoulders. "Move! Side exit!" The entire facility felt like it was collapsing. Sequential explosions, as if we had stepped on a nest of mines. In the midst of the chaos, Qasemi laughed. "You never escape, no matter how many times you try." I pulled him violently. "Shut up!" We reached a narrow tunnel leading outside. The moonlight appeared in the distance, but before we could get out, shots hit Johnson. He fell, blood spreading on the ground. "No!" I shouted, kneeling beside him. "Go, sir!" His voice was weak but firm. "Finish this. I won't leave you." He smiled even while bleeding. Jake would say the same. Connor pulled me by the shoulder. "Marcus, if we don't go now, we all die." I looked at Johnson. His gaze pleaded with me to move on. I swallowed the scream, held Qasemi, and we ran. Outside, the evacuation helicopter was already waiting for us. We climbed under heavy fire, Connor almost carrying Jessica Parker, who had been recaptured and was there too. When we finally took off, I saw the facility explode in sequence, turning to dust under the cold moon. I looked at Qasemi, tied up, bleeding, but still smiling. "You don't understand, Thompson. Even if you kill me, there will be others. The war never ends." I took a deep breath. "Maybe not, but today, it ends for you." Connor stared at me, wide-eyed. "What are you going to do?" I grabbed the radio. "This is Bravo 1. Target recovered. Requesting instructions." Silence. Then the cold voice from Washington. "Target must be eliminated. This is a direct order." I looked at the radio, then at Qasemi. Emma's words echoed in my mind. "Come back whole, not just alive." I turned off the radio. Order not received. Connor smiled, tired. Finally, back at base, we delivered Qasemi alive to the military tribunal. We didn't know if he would be tried, exchanged, or silenced, but we had kept the promise. It wouldn't be by our hands that he would disappear. At Johnson's funeral weeks later, I looked at the folded flag handed to the family. I thought of Jake, of all those who were left behind. And I realized, war never returns us whole. But every choice can prevent more families from going through the same pain. That night, I sat with Emma. She looked at me, serious. "You came back." "I came back. Whole." I sighed. "The best I could." She smiled shyly and hugged me. That's enough. And for the first time in a long time, I believed. And that brings us to the end of today's story. If you made it this far, it means you connected with our protagonist's journey, and that makes me very happy. I want to hear from you. What was the moment that touched your heart the most in this story? Tell me in the comments, because I love to know how these stories resonate with you. And if you have a similar story of overcoming, of loss, of finding strength where you didn't know you had it, share it with our community. Sometimes, telling our story is the first step to healing our wounds. Don't forget to like, if the story moved you, subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the soul, and turn on the notification bell, because every week we have a new journey to live together. Until next time, and remember, every ending is also a new beginning.